Greetings. Welcome to day 25 of Anthony Dawn's 31 Days of Tarot Challenge 2019. Today the prompt is, do you have any tarot self-care rituals that are only for your personal practice? I have to admit, this is another one of the questions I wasn't really actually sure what the writer's intent was. So I did a Google search for that and found, actually my husband did it for me. Thank you, Joe. He found a website a blogger had put up about talking about self-care rituals, and she was talking about actions that bring joy, civil pleasure, emotional balance, and allows one to check in with their inner voice. And she related that to using tarot as one of those actions. And to be able to check in with your inner voice, I believe, through tarot. So I'm interpreting this as, I hope I'm not wrong. I feel sometimes like I'm really wrong and everybody else is going to be really right. But I do have something to say about what I think it is. I do have kind of rituals. I mean, you know, when she's talking about self-care rituals, they're not, I would not have thought of them as rituals, but there's something, I guess a ritual is something that you do all the time, more traditions that I do. I do basically, for personal readings, 3 different kinds of readings for myself. I want to say, number one I do, which is new to this year, really 2019, I'm starting this quest for my bullet journal of having a single card, pulling a single card for the day, a daily card pull, as one way of getting to know a deck, but also to see what kind of overall energies are being fed to me that month by one unique deck. This year I'm using the Deviant Moon deck. And for this, well, for one thing, all of my rituals involving tarot, always, there is some cloth under my cards. Always. I do not put my cards on bare wood. I put them on a cloth. And again, this is going to be a part of, I hate to do this, but this is going to be a part of a video that I have coming up probably next week, next week, I'm not sure, on setting a sacred space. And this is something I do not deviate from ever. I have a old piece of an old wool, a fulled wool blanket from my youth in the kitchen, and it's just a square of wool about maybe 2 feet square, yeah, 1.5 feet, 2 feet square, that I put on my kitchen table, and I read that single card there that is kept with me. The reason I do it there is because I have all of my bullet journal tools and my bullet journal itself right there at the same time, and this is my way of connecting. This reading is my way of also connecting my spirituality with my day-to-day actions. So the day-to-day drudgery or whatever of the, you know, mundaneness of that I'm reporting in my bullet journal, at the same time I'm tying in my spiritual life to the same place. So that's why I am reading that card, pulling the card, shuffling the deck. I keep the deck out there with me, and I'm pulling that card every day. That is important that it's pulled in the same place as, you know, with my day-to-day activities are going to be recorded. Okay. And in that case, I'm usually, like I said, I'm in the kitchen. I'm at the kitchen table. I'm usually still in my pajamas. Usually have my morning tea cup there. You know, got my slippers. I usually have a fire in the fireplace. It's been cold lately, so my husband has a fire in the fireplace. My dogs are napping and the sun coming through the window. It's a ritual. It's really much a part of, how can that card be, what does that card mean to me as a part of that day? When I do a 3 card, my 3 card is my go-to um, tarot reading for me, and I do those usually several times a week. I recorded several of them on YouTube when I'm trying to get to know a deck. I use the 3-card reading. I have them on a as part of my playlist on the tarot, which I would follow up then on my blog on Bird in the Crown on my website. I love that kind of reading for just general knowledge, but it's a really good way to really get to know a deck really well. So I do that, and when I do that, those readings, those cards, I really go out. I do have pretty much of a ritual. I have, also, these are the cards. I do a 3-card reading if I'm going to record, which I was spoken about before too, if I'm trying to interpret some dreams, why I've been having certain kind of dreams, whatever, I included in my tarot journal. And that way, it's an full-blown, I'm usually by myself. I'm usually some kind of a quiet space, most often here in the parlor, on my table here. I have candles usually lit, incense burning, door closed. Just like I talked about in the video that I just talked about my ideal place to read. I mentioned that everything. What did I say? I'm even looking back to see what I mentioned. In the world of everywhere and in a space of nowhere. Is what I talked about where I was before. I have the birds around me. I have the sounds outside, the wind chimes. Usually the window's open if I'm in here. The sunshine. Everything is around me. The comings and goings in the cul-de-sac. But through this thin layer, this window that separates me, the door that separates me from the activities of the house, I'm in a space of nowhere. I'm drawn in. And just the only sensations I have, other than something faintly around me, distant sounds, distant smells, are the incense, the candles, my cards. And that's really precious time for me. That's really, you know, I get the most out of readings for myself at that point. Now, every once in a while, not terribly often, but pretty often, I do a full-blown reading for myself, one kind or another, where I have specific things I'm looking for. I might do a like a Celtic cross spread, or a something bigger, a 9-card, maybe some kind of a 9-card spread. In that case, I usually do those again on the kitchen table. I will maybe do it here in the parlor, but I cover like most of the one end of the table. We have a really large table, and we don't need to use it all for the two of us for most of the time. So I just cover part of it. Right, and I do the cards there, so it doesn't usually involve candles or incense. But I put the cards there so that I can leave them out, so I can look at them, so I can live with them maybe a couple days, or whatever, at least a full day. I leave them out, I go back and I visit, and this is a deeper kind of a reading, so I feel it's really important that I put my daily bits in there, my daily, that I'm around it with my husband, I'm around it with conversation, I'm around it with my pets. It's where the 3-card reading, the focus reading, or the dream interpretation reading is really an inward reading. This reading, a big spread like that, where I put out like that, where I'm looking for something in my life, I'm looking outward. I'm looking outward. What is going on around me out here that I need to pay attention to? Okay, so I guess if you would call that a ritual, that's what my ritual is. I'm not really sure, but anyway, that's just the way I interpreted the question. I apologize to the author of the question if I have misread it, but anyway, might be interesting nonetheless. So thank you so much for watching. I'm Rebecca, and I send you blessings.